All right, so for our next video, we got to show you how to set up a click track so that when you're playing a new song in, we have a time reference that we can use. And I have to take just a moment to talk about some of the reasons why playing to a click track is so important for us. What we're going to do eventually is use features that are really helpful with MIDI, things like quantization, copying and pasting, duplicating sections. And in order for that to work properly, we have to be on the grid. And I think actually I'm going to do an entire video that's just all about on the grid. But basically what it means is that we establish a tempo, and then we play to that tempo, and we can then move notes around so that they line up with the grid lines on our timeline here in Studio One. So the metronome is actually located at the bottom of the screen, and it says metronome right here, and there's a little triangle with the metronome icon there, and mine was turned on already, but if it's not turned on, you can turn it on right there so that it turns blue. It's also worth mentioning that in order to hear the metronome, we just have to make sure that it's also turned on the main or master output fader. So if I go to my mixer view and go all the way to the right where it says main, you'll notice that there's again this little click or metronome icon, and I want to make sure that that's blue and turned on so that I can hear the metronome. Okay, so the metronome is on, and theoretically if I hit the play button right now, I should hear the metronome. There it is. That's cool. So mine's working. Maybe yours isn't working. Let's figure out why that might be the case. So I'm going to go down to where it says metronome and click on the little wrench, and this will open up our metronome setup. A couple things that we want to make sure. First of all, at the very bottom it says click and play. This means that if you hit the play button or space bar on your keyboard, you'll hear the click when it just plays back. Now there might come a time later on after you get the song kind of put together where you actually don't need to hear the click anymore. You can just listen to the drums, and you can actually turn it off, especially in playback when you're not recording. So you can turn that off and on right there. Something else that's important to me is the kind of sound that I hear when the click is playing. So I'm kind of picky about this as a drummer, and especially if I have headphones on, something that's kind of blasting into my ears, I don't want it to sound too harsh or too kind of digital. So I've chosen the sound that's called rim shot. There's a lot of other options on here. I think the default is called click, and it would sound like this. Yeah. That one I find kind of like assaults my eardrum. I can feel it kind of tensing up every time I hear that kind of digital click. So I look for something that feels a little bit more natural. So for me at least, I like rim shot. I'm going to choose that for my sound. You'll also notice that there are three kind of levels. It says accent, beat, and offbeat. The accent is going to be the first beat of each measure. So if you've selected 4/4 as your time signature, it's going to be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's going to play a note on the 1. And you can see by these sliders that I've got the accent turned up the highest, and then the beat is a little bit less. So we're going to hear an accent on 1, and then the remaining beats are going to be a lower volume. Sounds like this. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in some cases you might want those to all be the same, but it can help just so that you know you're starting at the beginning of a measure to hear that accent on the 1. Now something that Studio One does that I absolutely love is they give us the option to add an offbeat or subdivision to our timekeeping. And as a drummer, this makes so much sense because it's actually kind of hard to just feel and groove to something when it's just that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the offbeat and I'm going to turn it up just a little bit and listen to the way this sounds. Already I feel like my head's moving. I can kind of feel the time a little bit better because it's subdividing the beats into smaller units. And for me, that just helps me kind of groove it a little bit more. So if you like that feeling of hearing the offbeats, you can mix just a little bit of that in, and it really helps a lot. There are options here for doing a pre-count, which means it's going to give a count before it starts recording, let's say, or pre-roll. I have those turned off right now. I tend to do it more manually, meaning I just add extra measures at the beginning of my session, and we'll talk about that on another video.